vague title of cosplay inspiration, so
Pretty much, like phoned us up about a week and a half ago and said, we've come up with this panel idea, we want you guys to do it. And that's all we know about it. So
what was the idea?
It can go in any direction you want to choose. If you want to just start asking questions, that's fine. If you want us to talk about stuff, that's fine too. You've got 2 judges from Euro Cosplay entrance. So if you want to talk about judging as well and what we look for, you can
2
do that
judges
too.
and 1 finalist.
One finalist,
No
yes.
connection.
I didn't judge.
He didn't.
So
Actually, how many Euro Cosplay judges are there actually in the room who have judged at some portion of Euro Cosplay?
Yeah, one back there. Oh guys,
You want to come in as well?
Actually, how many people have been in Euro Cosplay in this room?
Okay.
Right, I don't know, do you want to start off
No,
with what got us into cosplay? Because we've all been, the 3 of us have all been doing it for quite a long time now. The first costume that I properly kind of made for myself was in 1999. Which is a very long time ago now, and I don't like to think about that.
Small man. Thanks for that, mate. Especially if it was a lot better.
I was actually still at school too, it's okay.
Hey.
What, you made your own then, or that was...
No.
See, when I was a kid, my mum made me costumes for school and stuff like that. She made me this amazing giant tomato costume. It was just epic. But yeah, when I actually started making stuff for myself was when I was 16.
Earlier than me, though. I started that maybe 22 after university, I think. Which is roughly 98. So yeah.
So I'm the light one to the
We
group.
can work out how old you are.
You can work out.
Add 100 onto that and you'd be about right.
I sort of got into it from other people who made me stuff, because I hadn't really got a clue. And then I started making bits of my costume. Net made most of them for me.
Yeah.
And then I suppose the first main costume I did was Killick, which was a couple of years ago.
That's
You were
right.
ignoring colours as well.
I think you helped me on that.
I hand sewed one piece on it.
But that was a cat suit as
You
well.
made everything else yourself.
Yeah, that was a cat suit. Killick was all made from silk. That was the first. That's when I really learned how to use a sewing machine. Very, very nice Genome. It has speed slider, and I have it on very, very slow one.
Oh.
I hate listening to him sew.
So I can just push the pedal down, and it just does this. And I just learned to sew that way.
Like, yeah, I'm not getting that for another 5 hours.
And then
I only started. I did sewing machine like maybe 6 years after I started cosplaying.
I started off hand sewing everything because I was awful at textiles at school. Really, really bad. Got no enjoyment out of it at all. It was the Rocky Horror Show that got me into cosplay. I looked it up on the internet and found out that people dressed up when they went to go and see the shows. I thought, sounds like fun. So I just kind of altered some clothes with some really crappy hand stitching and went from there. I only started using a machine a couple of years after that.
Well, I suppose the first cosplay I did, and what got me into cosplay was there was a character in Rebel Schools. I don't know Rebel Schools.
I remember that.
You remember it?
I remember
you
it.
do, don't you? You're as old as I am, or something.
I've been cosplaying longer than you.
You have.
17 years.
What? You were
Look.
judging it, actually.
Come have some fun.
Yeah, it was basically a sort of baseball guy from Rebel Schools. Roughly the same height, roughly the same temperament as me at the time, because short guys. A bit angry. And,
You're a very angry
awesome.
man.
And yeah, so I looked around baseball jerseys to see what they looked like. And I had to buy one. Obviously, buy a day's baseball jersey. Try and roughly cut out the shapes from fabric. This is very rough. This is like very early in my time, like 97, 98.
That was 98.
Yeah, it was.
stalking.
Actually. When was I?
98.
98. Where was I?
Going senile there.
You put your stuff in your jersey.
Yeah, making a baseball jersey. And yeah, that's pretty much how I started. That was hand sewing at the time. Started hand sewing until I started using a sewing machine. And then thought, why did I keep hand sewing for so long?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with hand sewing,
No,
it just takes a lot
It takes a lot
longer.
longer, and it means
Apart
you.
from me, I've been a bit quicker.
And you've got a lot. I feel I always feel you've got a lot more control with hand sewing than you do
Yeah.
machine sewing.
But you get a much nicer finish.
You get a much nicer
especially if you're doing
finish, yeah.
surface stitch. Yeah.
You do, and you get more stitch variety. It's very hard to do like a zigzag stitch by hand. You pretty much can't do it, and that's what you really need for stretch
You
fabric.
can do it. You can do it. It just takes a while longer.
It takes a
The
lot
longest thing to do is to
longer.
like overlock an edge or something.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the hardest thing to do hand sewing wise, and I've never done that.
I'm hand sewing stretch fabrics and back stitch. And just hope.
Well, that's because that's got the loops. It's
Yeah.
stretch stitch. Anyway.
Yeah. Go on then.
What was your,
What was my name?
your first? Well, you kind of dressed up
My first costume was from Jedi from Sailor Moon, but I didn't make it.
as. I've just remembered.
Oh no, we're not going to that. We're
We're not
no.
going into
Well,
the
there was
fact.
barely any sewing involved.
The two of us were both obsessed with the X-Files at around the same time. This was like 10 years before we met, and I used to dress up as Dana Scully, and I was 13, and I went on telly. Yeah. And he was apparently dressing up like Mulder at exactly the same time.
Oh dear.
Judging.
Well, you don't have
What-
to.
What do you mean by
How did we get
judging?
into it, or-
How much does it cost
As
to
in-
pay you off?
Gosh, no, that's
You
it.
laugh that
It was
people
for
have actually
last
time. Well, I
semi-jokingly tried to bribe me in the past.
I wouldn't even be surprised.
Yeah,
Has anyone tried to really seriously go?
not really serious. They kind of, well, they've just said it semi-jokingly, and you could tell they were sort of trying
Well, I've said it properly.
Establish
over the
the
years.
boundaries.
Sticking their toe in the water.
Yeah, pretty much. And no, they just get shut down immediately. That is not a thing that will happen.
I mean, I've judged once, and I've said I'd really rather not do a serious judging ever again because it just wasn't my cup of tea. Because basically, several of my friends had come through the doors, and I was kind of like, oh
Hi,
god.
Zay.
I was kind of like, oh god.
I thought we were
Somebody,
friends.
somebody is going to be really upset with me here. I can just sense it coming. Unfortunately, they weren't.
It
No
shouldn't
one-
be like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's never been a problem
I-
for either of us.
No.
I mean, I've had one friend who was disappointed with the decision,
Oh,
but still
that's
respected
fine.
it.
Yeah.
That's that. I mean, I think being disappointed when you don't win a competition that you've been working
Yeah,
towards for
that's-
6 months
Yeah.
is completely natural.
Yeah.
It's when you get like butthurt about it, really.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
really get.
I mean, there's not really that
Yeah,
much
snippy
in
about
the UK, but certainly on an international front. I mean, I had a lot of trouble after Euro Cosplay because somebody from a certain country who will go unnamed really felt wronged, and he felt that the event had wronged him and everything. And so, like, my personal sort of like standpoint on that is, if you're going to go into a competition and you're going to enter competitively, expect to come last,
yeah.
because you're either going to live up to your expectations or do better.
When I entered, got through to the final, I was looking at. Oh my god, that's liquid coat. I looked at it as there was 34 people entering, and I was going to be really happy if I got to the top 15. I actually did better than that, but I looked at it as I would be really happy if I got to top 15, so I was expecting to be lower. So don't set yourself up as I'm going to win. And
Yeah.
then when you
I was so shocked when I got called back up on stage. I was in my bra.
Yes, we all remember.
Yeah, our finals do have a tendency to be undressed by the time the final comes
Yeah.
around.
You can only
Yeah.
bear being in the costume
costume for so long.
Yes.
As individual judges, what's your like? I mean, obviously you look for quality overall. What's your sort of specific? If you had to pick one thing that if it's good, it really brings the costume up, and if it's bad, it really brings it down. Just one specific thing, like whatever. What's your kind of personal bugbear and personal sort of?
My personal bugbear just seems.
Des cannot stand afraid really upsets me.
We may have just been saying the same thing back here.
Yes,
Hemming.
I like to turn around and watch him when one turns
I
up
do
and
cringe,
just see him trying not to show his horror to the cosplayer in front of him.
But I mean, a lot of, there's certain things that I'm sort of very forgiving of, which is sort of like slightly messy finishing on, say, a prop or something. And some stuff that I'm much less forgiving of.
Well, it kind of depends on what
else
is in as well.
Yeah.
If you know, you've got two similarly skilled, similarly qualityed costumes, then you will probably
Oh,
have to
good.
look
Oh,
If
okay.
you've got one that has a great prop and one that has a bad one, then that's where you have to.
It's this way.
But I don't know that there is anything.
Choice of fabric can
Yeah,
sometimes.
choice of fabric is a big one.
When I judged as an event, there was one where it was quite easy to tell that they bought the costume because it came from China and was made with that really cheap PVC.
Yeah, the
in day
PVC
rentals.
trim that you can't actually
get
buy in
here.
this country.
But it makes the costume look so tacky. So even if you hadn't sewn it perfectly, if it was made of a trim that the character would probably be wearing, it would be more in keeping and therefore more forgiving. If you've got this really cheap PVC sitting on top, that can really put off a judge if they're trying to look for things more. Because that's what ultimately the judge is trying to do, is mark you down, not the other way up.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to fabric choice, a lot of people are really insulting about satin. Sometimes
Sometimes
There's
it
a
works.
place
it
for
is,
satin.
it has its place. I've seen people whine because somebody used silk dupion to make a ball gown. They're like, oh, they used shiny fabric. I'm like, it's a bridal
Yeah, if
dress.
there was no use for shiny fabric, they wouldn't make it.
Exactly.
I mean,
Like,
there's-
do you know what bridal dresses are usually made of? Oh my god, silks and satins.
I mean, there's certain levels of logic there that you can apply into that, because if you like making something that's like a really nice sort of like reproduction of something old, you're not going to be having synthetics in there.
No.
If you want something like to look medieval,
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to have nylon, you're not going to have you're not going to have satin, you're not going to have
if you're
spandex.
looking, this is a personal bugbear of mine. There's a specific costume, and everybody's got it wrong. Queen Esther from Trinity Blood is based very obviously on a dress that Elizabeth the First
The
wore,
one that her
a
famous
white
portrait
rose
struck.
dress. Yeah, every single person I've seen do it has used a hoop skirt. It's not a hoop skirt, it's a farthingale. It's like a hoop that goes around here. If you're doing a costume that is based on a historical period, research that period. You know, do the research and it will look so much better. Don't just assume big skirt equals hoop skirt.
Although, don't do Queen Esther because there's like a million of them.
Of course, you've got to take your costumes into context. I can assure you I did not spend days and days researching how to make Axel from Streets of Rage for the skit yesterday. Take your costume
You
in
didn't
context.
make Axel.
So, do take it in context. If it is supposed to be just a funny costume, then you don't have to do all this. But if it's just for judging, then
Yeah.
you do have to
That's
research
another
it.
thing, because do fun costumes now and then.
More-
Don't
more.
always take it seriously. It's a hobby, it's meant to be fun.
Well, they're
Yeah.
entry.
Yeah, if you go into competition, take that seriously, but remember that cosplay is about having fun.
Yeah.
And if you do enter the competition, wear your costume when you're being judged.
Don't just
Sounds
dump-
obvious.
Please don't come up to us with a box with your costume in it and put it in front of us. It doesn't work. Yes, twice. Yeah. Yeah.
We won't name
They're
names.
not wearing it.
we can't assess how it fits.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but in addition to that, you can turn it inside out and see all the, the messy stitching and all that sort of thing.
I mean, it takes you an hour and a half to prepare just for the judging.
Yeah.
Well, it takes us an hour and a half to prepare you for judging.
Yes, it does.
Because you can get away with quite a bit just by kind of having the costume on. Like when I went to get judged wearing V from Eternal Sonata, the entire thing is kind of once you're into it, it's quite difficult to get out of it and like turn it inside out so you can inspect it. There's actually a massive hole in the lining of it because when I sewed the lining on, it didn't fit. So I slashed a hole in it to get it. Turned out I didn't actually need to cut a hole in it. I'd done something else wrong. But anyway, it had a hole in it, so I had to patch it. But when I was wearing it, it was on the inside, and you couldn't turn it out to see
I will say
it.
that we are reaching a point in UK costume quality now where we might reach the same kind of judging style as the Renaissance fairs have, where you will need to be both judged in and out of your costume. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I have a feeling that it might start to become something that happens.
They'll look at the
They'll judge the
costume.
costume on you, and then they will look at the costume. No, sorry.
Roaring.
Yeah, no.
Just anywhere on that one.
Of course, a lot of the constructed type ones, rather than the sewn ones, even when they're making even when they're making those for films and stuff, the insides of the insides of these things can actually be quite ratty.
Yeah.
Even the real professional ones for films. Because what's the point?
Skexel, my Skexis in places is a train wreck inside, isn't it?
It's not bad. But
No, it's not bad, but
I mean, just like the inside of the head and stuff. There's all bits and pieces.
Generally, as far as you're concerned, the inside doesn't matter as much.
Generally,
but they
all
are
you would see is the area of the
going
head.
I know I was getting originally.
Make sure that's
I haven't done it for real.
they are going to make you take it off for judging.
I
Then.
mean, that could be a few years away,
Yeah, it's just
I mean, I think what is going to come in relatively soon is the necessity for progress shots.
I think
That's
already
sort of being
Having a small portfolio, A, to prove you made it.
Yeah.
Some people do still enter board costumes.
it does
It
happen.
does seem a lot harder to commission costumes and make costumes.
Well, I mean, one of the things is people are commissioning costumes from people who are also in competition.
Yeah.
There's no. Obviously, if you send away to a factory in China, it's going to be made with industrial level machines.
Yeah.
It's going to be made with industrial methods. It's going to be done on a production line, and there's things to look for that.
But if it's
been
commissioned,
if it's been privately commissioned from someone like Tab,
it does help that
There's
we
no way to
know
tell.
most
We know
of the
most
main
of them.
Well, yeah.
commissioners.
But if it from abroad, it's kind of a bit harder.
Yeah.
We don't know as many people.
That's what it is.
But you actually progress shots.
Yeah,
Well,
that's it. They should be
Yeah.
able to show up.
I mean, it's still possible to fake that.
Yeah, we can
I mean, one thing to look for is are there serious incongruities in the costume? Are some bits made incredibly well and other
Oh
bits
yeah,
made
we've
incredibly
had
badly?
that.
Yeah?
We've had that, yeah. Remember that guy who came to be judged and he had that really nice gap around jacket? And then he had an armband that was just a piece of polycon, not even hemmed, frayed all over the place, with a symbol drawn on it in biro. And you made all of this costume yourself? Oh yes. Really?
Yeah.
But
Do they think we're stupid?
also, levels of expectation. We were talking about where you think you might be placed. Expo, I know, has an expert and a normal category. Okay, expert category is usually for people who've already won and then move up, if I remember.
Yeah.
Some people, even though it's their first costume, will still think that they are experts. So there's one guy who came with
Images of these people would be experts.
Some people do come with costumes that, while they are proud of them, they've got to realise that they are not
At the same
at the same level yet.
Yeah.
And the expert category is really for people who've won before, to take them out of the pool,
Yeah.
to give the next people below a chance to catch up. So it's not always going to be the same people winning each time. Now that might sound harsh because they're moving up to another level, but you've got to build up experience.
It's kind of the system that they've had with the American
Yes.
costumes.
Yeah, the
They have a
journeyman.
beginner, journeyman, expert. Yeah.
I mean, there's official rules for the costumes guild, aren't there, for how to run like masquerades in that particular way.
When I qualified in the Skeksis, there was somebody actually in the expert category who'd insisted on being in the expert category, and she complained heavily afterwards that it wasn't fair that she was in the same category as I was. It's like, well, where was I supposed to go then? You tell me.
There's a category.
Own special category.
Also, if you're going to cosplay, if you're going to enter as a group, make sure
Try and make
members,
sure
all the members are on the same level.
Judged
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
But you can then really be judged on your weakest or your
Yeah, what's the weakest card?
So there's a question.
You said about it's all got to be made and that sort of thing. If you found like a skirt that's the exact one that you want in a shop, could you buy that skirt and then adapt it to what you need?
It
or would
depends on the specific event rules.
It depends on specific event rules. It depends on the level of adaptation.
Depends if that's the main body of the costume.
Yes, that's true. Actually.
Yeah. You know, things like
If you were say making one of the guys from Alien, the first film, and a chest burster as a little hand puppet, that's the main part of the costume. They're not going to mind too much if you buy the t-shirt.
I mean,
But
Actually, when I did a big Phoenix puppet,
Yeah.
I was wearing normal black clothes,
Yeah.
completely store-bought, but they weren't part of the costume,
Yeah,
it was
they-
just the puppet.
exactly, like if you
You have to
you're
get permission for that.
if you're like stage ninja and doing blacked out puppeteering of a velociraptor or whatever, they're not going to mind if you wear tights.
They can't expect you to make your own shoes.
Exactly. You don't have to be a cobbler.
Read the rules.
that's
Email the event organiser.
individual event.
And also,
Email
if
Expo
you do
or-
find like the perfect garment, it isn't too expensive. But if you do find the perfect garment, it's like, oh my god, this is exactly it. Buy it by all means. Take it home. Get an unpicker.
Take it.
Dismantle the thing and go. There we go.
Facsimile.
There's my pattern, and then just find possibly even a better material.
Too expensive.
Well, yeah, no, it's a long
You find
way
it in a
round.
charity shop.
Yeah.
But
You'll get the right shape.
you'll get the right shape. You'll get what you want,
Yeah.
and you've made it.
Like this is all right.
I mean, okay, how's this then? If you are super competitive, what kind of costumes are kind of... What we've been finding is that the ones that are coming right up at the top have got 3 or 4 individual, very unique elements to them.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to win. It's very difficult to win simply with a very well-made,
Yes.
simple costume.
Again, we're at a level now where if you want to place very highly, you are going to need to show a variety of techniques. Whether that be, half a dozen different sewing techniques, that's fine, or simple-ish sewing executed well and complicated crop
I
work.
mean, that's what Spain did.
Yeah.
Her actual costume was pretty straightforward, but her prop work was spectacular.
What you really want to do is make yourself stand out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would pretty much help me say.
Picking stuff can be quite good. I mean, for me, I like the challenge. My job is problem solving, so I just apply problem solving to my costumes because I like to work things out.
Science.
I like to try and make things cheaper than some other people who make their costumes. But for me, it's just a challenge. I also tend to go for things that people haven't done in this country before. I like to have the first one of something because it's a challenge. So
If I've seen something that I want to do done better than I think I can do it
Then-
anywhere in the world, that's it. Not going to do it. What's the point? Not going to bother.
When I finished Chris, there was 4 in the world that was ever made. One was in Japan, made by a professional for the actual series, and there were 3 in America. There's never been one in this country. And
Yes, there has. My first convention there was one. It was made entirely out of fur. I'm not kidding. It was like a foam costume with fur on top and you couldn't see anything.
It's meant to be hard suit.
1997!
Yeah.
Was it made of fun for?
Actually,
Yes.
cilantro
No.
It's plasticized.
I use Sintra.
No, I've not seen anyone do it.
That's actually its second incarnation.
Jeez.
Experience does actually work a lot. When I first made this, I'd never made an armor suit before. It was very basic. I had to get used to the concept of throwing things away when they went wrong. I don't like throwing things away. So I thought the hardest part of the costume was going to be the helmet. Oh boy, was I wrong. That was the hardest part of the costume. That took 12 patterns to get that. All
How many pieces is that?
there is 12 pieces individually.
Yeah.
In fact, if you want to.
Yeah.
That's why we make things out of foam.
As opposed to glass.
Like foam.
As opposed to glass.
I've got to just bounce.
Glass is just
Boats out there.
Hang on, we've got a couple of questions. Can we take this first one first?
All painted.
That concept of what you were saying about making no, I don't think any argue that you should make your own costume, but some aspects of the costume, things like the wig
Yeah.
or the tights,
Yeah, for
or,
sure.
Absolutely.
say a belt buckle. If you
No.
find the
Yeah,
ideal
yeah,
belt buckle,
books.
and even the ideal belt, should you actually be buying a piece of leather and
Yeah, it,
yourself? Yeah,
when it comes down to it, you're kind of 90%.
It's not like
80 to 90%. No one cares if you bought your shoes.
Some
Belts.
a belt is materials, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an accessory.
It's going to depend on whether or not that belt is a
Okay.
detailed belt.
Yeah, if it's like a really
Like
fancy
say-
belt and you buy
Something
a
like- I mean,
costume
Like
belt.
cloud belt. Cloud
Yeah.
belt would probably
Yeah, people don't really look at characters' belts until they're going to make them, but something like Cloud's belt, something like Edward Elric's belt, things like that, I mean, if you just bought, well, even if you found one of them, it'd be a minor miracle.
Yeah.
But if you've got somebody else to make one or something like that, then it's kind of like, wow.
I mean, with
That's
the
blurring
wig,
around.
with the wig as well. Buy a wig, but you buy a styled wig for someone to style for that costume. That's commissioning someone to do the work that you should have done.
Also, sometimes there's an elaborate belt buckle as well.
Yeah, it's, I mean,
And
as
sometimes
a
you
rule
have to
of thumb, it's not. You can tell if you've made most of the costume. That's just a bit, general rule of thumb. If you think you've made a good 80 to 90% of it, that's pretty much fine to enter competition.
I mean, it's like with my first
Just be
costume.
honest as well about what you've made, please.
It's like with my first costume that I ever did, the Alphonse Elric armor. All the undersuit for that was just a ninja suit because at that point in time I had so little sewing skill and sewing knowledge, and I only had access to the worst possible sewing machine imaginable. It was bloody garbage. It was like one of the little 20 quid quick repair things. It probably would have died if I'd have like sewn a whole sleeve.
I mean, stuff like ninja suits,
Yeah,
that you wear underneath the costume, that's underwear, really.
My laughing
Yeah, play
octopus
rubber
suit, I bought an octopus suit for the base, but almost the entire thing is then covered in
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah.
I don't regard that as me having cheated on part of the costume. It is basically underwear.
I mean, the thing,
It's like
you know,
brown.
there's a obviously it's a grey area, but it definitely goes into the wrong when you commission someone to make something.
Yeah.
Because you should have done it yourself.
Actually, wig. Yeah, commission the wig.
Yeah, exactly. If you commission someone to style a wig for you,
Yeah, then.
then
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Common
all, of course,
sense.
on the theory of being competitive.
Yeah.
Anybody who's in the room, if you're going to commission a costume just because you want to walk around in it when
that's fine.
we're
yeah,
not
that's
making
great.
a slight on you
Not-
whatsoever.
So we're only talking about
Yeah, we're only talking about
Competitions just not bloody selling.
They wouldn't expect you to make your own jeans out there.
Yeah.
No.
Your winning character's not going to be wearing jeans, but
Yeah, that's the thing.
You won't be judged on the quality of the jeans that you bought, they just get disregarded
Yeah.
for the purposes of judging, and you
Yeah.
have to have done enough to make it
Your own.
your own.
Yeah, I mean, carry on.
I was interested how exactly you get started because I mean, I want to start cosplaying, but the only things I actually find nice are either women dresses or armor. So I said, okay, women dresses on me.
yeah, go for the armor.
There are ways of getting around that.
Well,
Yeah, it's pretty pretty much you have to find something you really love.
Yeah.
You've got to, especially when you're starting, you've got to really care about it, because you are going to run into problems. You are going to have moments when you just want to throw the thing.
I think it has to go this way.
There's another one, Dave.
Yeah, estimate how long you think something's going to take you, and then multiply it by 5. That is how long it will probably take you.
I mean, I thought on my last one that it'd take a few months to make. It ended up taking nearly a year and a half in total to make one costume.
The actual work time was 8 months, wasn't it? Something like that.
Always heavily over budget for your costume as well. If you think you're going to spend 60 quid, expect to spend a couple of hundred, and always keep that money stashed away. Because there's nothing worse than like having a weekend free and you're ready to work and you go, right, I need that glue, opening your pot and you've got none. And you're like, oh damn, I'm broke, I can't go out. I mean, I've had that problem for the last year or so because I've been unemployed. Yeah.
How long did you get for actually starting armor like that? How long did it take
That was
to
my
make
first
that?
Well, so a lot of these components
Yes.
are
Some
of their
people,
generation.
unfortunately, other people hate, can pick up something and just play with it. There is a woman online at the moment who's doing a Queen Esther costume, and she's doing an excellent job.
And it's her second
It's her
costume.
second costume.
Really thick stuff.
Some people are just
However,
overachievers.
It's about experience, really. I mean, this for me is the second time this has been made. First time I made it, it was mainly tube based, so you get your foam, you curl it around, and that was my arm. I since then started to pattern so I can get curls, and it's experience, really. This is heat moldable.
Generally, the best thing to do is look at something. If you literally have no idea how to make it, there are so many places online now that you can go and say, I'm a newbie, I would like to make this. Can anyone give me suggestions on what I might want to look at for starting? And people will be friendly. I mean, don't come on and say, how do I make this?
Yeah.
Be polite. Say,
Be polite.
You know, admit I am a newbie. I know this is ambitious, but this is something I'd really like to make. You know, just be polite.
I mean, a lot of the time, if somebody I mean, what I normally do, if somebody comes to me and says, I really want to make this, it's the first thing I've ever made, and I'll take one look at it and go, I wouldn't even try and make that. And, you know, I've got quite a few years' experience now. I'll normally say, look, it's beyond what I'd be comfortable making.
Yeah.
Why don't you make this instead? A lot of people who make stuff have similar ideas to the people who want to make stuff, and they'll sort of like hit that same thing and go, I want to make that, but I can't.
If you're doing sewn costumes, you know, people sew. There's books about it.
Yeah.
Pick one up.
There's lots of tutorials online.
I think the other thing as well, if you are looking at a particular piece of artwork and you're thinking, how do I make this? The thing that I always say to people that are just starting out when they post on Cosplay Island and say, can you give me any tips, is to deconstruct components of the costume. I mean, this one, for example, you can divide it into quite a few bits. So you've got the polo neck underneath, and then you've got this tunic thing over the top, and then this. And if you're looking at it as a whole, you sort of think, well, how am I going to make all of these bits?
Yeah.
And so you kind of deconstruct it into individual bite-sized components that are easier to kind of manage, and then just practice as you go.
Find as many reference pictures as you can.
Especially
You will
back.
spot different things. I mean, I made Eno from Guilty Gear, and it was about the 5th picture I found, I finally realised how the top was put together.
And also put things together logically. Don't sort of start on a project and go, right, okay, it's got a thing that goes over the top of something, then something that goes underneath, and something that goes underneath that. Don't start with the thing on the top. Start with the base, work out. Because if you build that top layer and then you build the bottom layer and it doesn't fit.
One thing that I've actually found very useful is commercial patterns.
Yeah.
There's, you know, if you go into a sewing shop, you can find dress patterns that you can just buy. If you find one that's reasonably similar to what you want to do, even if you never actually use the pattern,
You get a good idea.
you get an idea of how it breaks up and the shape of a sleeve with this weird bell curve at the top.
Look at your
You wouldn't know
clothes
that.
as well.
Yeah.
Look at the inside of your clothes, and you see things like dots. Yeah, you will learn.
How the panels.
Yeah, how panels fit together.
If you can, like, if you have something that can chuck away, you can like tear it apart. And
Especially for
actually
things
see
like
what the
jackets
shapes
and
look
stuff like that. Like if you can learn how to master basic clothing shapes, once you know how to make a basic blazer jacket, which I first attempted one back in 2009.
No, yeah.
And it was a pattern that I downloaded off the internet. But the Stars website has loads of free patterns that you can download. You have to cut them out and stick them all together and stuff because they're just printed on bits of A4 paper. But if you can't really afford a big sewing pattern or whatever, they're not that expensive if you can get them in sales and stuff. But if you're just wanting to try it out and see, then it's a good way to start. But pattern instructions can be quite confusing.
Yes.
I don't particularly like
internet
working
helps
with
a lot.
I actually
yeah.
quite like pattern instructions because they take you through every step.
It
But they do
depends-
expect you to know quite a lot of terminology.
Yeah, it depends
Yeah.
vastly upon the company as well.
Simplicity are quite good.
Yeah, I recommend QuickSew mainly. That's KWIKSEW. They're very friendly for new people. Simplicity are good. Personally, I do not get on with Butterick. I find their fitting is very variable, and
Size 6 is like a sack.
yeah, and they're the worst at using complicated terms that I've asked my friends and no one knows what it means. I've had to
They're
look
pretty
it
bad
up.
for that as
Oh,
well.
no. Yeah,
Things like
McCall's
the
are
back
also
facing
quite
of a jacket. Back facing what?
Yeah,
It took me ages to figure that out.
the first thing that I made, I was making with my mum, and she has made some of her clothes before. We got to this point and said, now baste the jacket. Do what? Like a turkey baster?
Years ago I said to my mum, what's machine basting? She says it's a thing you do with a machine.
basting is
when-
just simple stick.
Yeah, it's tacking.
yeah.
It's tacking. If you've done textiles at school, it's just a very loose stitch, just
Like
to kind of
pinning.
hold things together. Yeah, it's like pinning, but
If you're doing it on a machine, it's just a longer stick.
yeah.
So that
Most patterns are
It's like nap
are USA based. So
In America, they'll say the nap of the fur. In the UK, they'll say the pile of the fur. It means the length and the directionality of the fibres.
Yeah, I mean,
But they say
this
nap,
is-
we say pile.
charity shops will very often have a sewing book, just a basics sewing book.
Reader's Digest.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
really?
very
My mum's got
very
brilliant.
Your mum's got a lot of stuff. Your mum's got an overlock.
Yeah.
That's not good. Let's not talk about my mum.
Honestly, it's
Two or three quid and suddenly you will understand so much more.
Also,
Experience does help.
if you're starting out, there's no harm in buying some really, really cheap fabric for like 50p a metre
Practicing.
and practicing and roughing out.
Mock-ups are your
Yeah.
friends.
The
Like whenever I,
The same goes for armour stuff as well. Just get stuff. Yeah.
oh yeah, but if you want to build something and actually try it on,
You
it helps having it in
can do
fabrics and
amazing
drapes.
things with cardboard.
I mean,
You really can.
My armory type things is you start with cardboard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You just make it and go, right, what's wrong with it? The surface is wrong. How can I fix that? And then you either think of a new material or you go, I'll cover it in something. You find something else to cover that, or you go, oh, it's too rigid or too soft. And you can just keep expanding on it because cardboard will go down the shop and get piles of it for free.
If you're doing anything like really, it's probably going to apply to you, but if anyone's doing anything really, really structural, like big armour or a big fursuit or something creaturey with all sorts of weird stuff going on, grab yourself a 12-inch grab yourself a 12-inch posable artist's dummy, some bits of cereal box cards, some scraps and bits and pieces, and dress that dummy up.
what you want.
Yeah, I mean, when the studios were making the Alien Queen, there's a maquette of her, it's about yay big, and it's got two little artist's dummies, which were the performers, because she's got 4 arms, 2 guys, strapped back to back in her chest, doing her arms. But yeah, they made a maquette with these dummies to get an idea of where the human bodies would fit.
That's what I did for the Priss boots that went around. I actually made a duct tape leg. So I actually had it stuck into the shoe, and that's how I built the thing around it. And I just
Yeah.
kept patterning that until it fit around
Oh
my
yeah, I mean,
leg.
if you're doing something superstructural, having basically a body cast made of duct tape, which you get your friends to do for you.
There's a whole bunch of tutorials.
There's some safety issues, so make sure you read the tutorials online.
Yeah. So going on the sort of like theory of like what's the best way.
Very not flexible. Breathe out. Yeah. The safety stuff, otherwise you're like,
There's safety concerns, so do make sure you read all the tutorials.
It is also a very sobering experience to suddenly have a perfect reconstruction of your body.
a copy of my head in my room instead.
Yeah.
On the same sort of like topic though, like what sort of like the best way, shall we call it, the best way to do things, and the best way this and the best way that. Always decide what you're going to do with your costume before you make your costume out of something. So for example, if you want to be able to do like an acting skit or something, and you want to like be able to do like a stage dive or something, don't make your arm out of fiberglass. You'll probably kill yourself. You'll probably snap the fiberglass, get massive like jagged fiberglass chunks in your body, and you'll spend the rest of the convention in a hospital.
Whereas when Tab's group did the gold armour, it was all made of foam, and they were like doing somersaults on
Again, when they
stage.
did the Soul Calib group, the masks were made of latex because they were going to be rolling around on the stage and you don't want sharp edges.
Yeah.
You had a question?
When you say you're judging, you're winning a costume. Do you ever get costumes that are made by not just one person but a consortium of like very skilled people who each pick a part of it and build it together? Do you often get costumes that come from a competition like that made by lots of people?
I suppose you.
If they're in groups,
do
it's not a problem. If you're in groups, you can have one person making all the costumes, or you can have everyone making different bits of the costumes, whatever. If everyone who's been involved in the making is entering the competition, that's all good. But it is not okay for a group of people to enter a single costume. That's just the way the rules
I
are.
don't think there's any competition in the UK that allows that. Actually.
And conversely, say for instance with the example being like not WCS, Euro Cosplay and things like that, you can't really qualify in a costume that you've entered in a group that a bunch of people have made.
It's explicitly against the rules.
Explicitly against the
And
rules.
the other
Always
thing
check
is,
the rules is the best thing to do.
Most of the cosplay competitions in the UK have a performance aspect. It's a different percentage for each of them, but as far as I'm aware, they all do at the moment. If you're not in the costume, you're not doing the performance, and that is a part of what we judge on as well.
Yeah, it can't be different made from wearer.
Yeah.
Which does lock out quite a few things.
It
There's
does,
some
but-
costumes I'd like to make that I can't wear and vice versa.
There's got to be rules, there's got to
Of
be a
course.
point where you have to stop.
Because otherwise you could just go.
Going through websites of people who've made amazing costumes, but they've made them as a group.
Yeah.
And they were saying that they've won this and that award.
You'll tend to find that they've either entered as a group
Yeah.
or
It's quite common
like
to
Mass
have
Effect
like a
girl.
group of some
Yeah.
people where one person has done the sewing, one has done the props, and one has done the wig work, but they're all wearing.
they're entering as
It's
a
very
group.
common in America, that is, because there's that big sister from BioShock in America that looks like somebody just went off the screen and just picked.
Vulcans.
Oh, is that actually Vulcans?
It is Vulcan, yeah.
But there was like 13 people that worked on it. It might not be Vulcans.
Oh, is it?
No,
Oh, no,
there's
it's
one.
is it the guy who had the photo shoot in the aquarium?
That was Vulcan.
Yeah.
No, that's
Uh,
Vulcan.
That was
I can't
Vulcans,
remember.
Anyway.
No, there's one where it was basically it was like 13 people who worked on it. So they had like people who were metalwork experts, they had people who were fiberglass experts, and they were all pretty much experts as well. You know, I mean, not necessarily in costuming, but the guy who did fiberglass ended up being doing car body work, and the guy who did all metal work was an engineer, and you know the person who did all the fabric parts got lots of experience. In that instance, as long as the competition allows that, it's fine. But really, you always want to be really careful and read it. If you sort of like start making a costume with a specific intent to enter it into a specific competition,
know the rules beforehand.
Read the rules
RTFR.
thoroughly. Read the rules time and time again. And if you find a loophole in those rules, don't be dishonest about it. Ask.
Email the convention. The people who run the conventions are nearly always cosplayers themselves.
Yeah.
Although sometimes you have to nag them to make a rule clarification for quite a while.
Yeah.
Or email their girlfriends and they'll head for them.
There's no question back there actually.
Any other questions?
So go on. You mentioned how you do costume judging and you've got to be performing it, but obviously that restricts things to costumes which you can realistically wear. And to what extent does judging include the person's appearance? I mean, obviously it can be altered slightly with prosthetics or with makeup and
You
wigs
mean how much of
especially.
it is a beauty competition?
Not really beauty, but appropriateness to the character.
How much do you look like?
Because if the character is incredibly ugly, it's not a beauty competition.
It depends on the competition.
Yeah.
I think for WCS, they take that into account.
It's how well you're recreating
Yeah.
this
I
character.
mean, also,
We do have a mark for accuracy, so that
You do, but I mean, generally, things like body shape or face type or whatever, for the competitions that I've judged, they're not usually...
There's common sense application,
Yeah.
things like, you know...
The main thing is, if you have a body shape that is not the same as your character, it is your ability to tailor it to suit you.
I mean, there is the fact that there are some body shapes that will not work with certain costumes. I'm actually thinking more in the other direction, not big people trying to be skinny characters, but skinny people trying to be big characters with no padding.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a skinny little rake, don't cosplay as... Yeah. It's not too bad because it's that's all in underneath them. Don't cosplay as someone who's a sumo wrestler. Don't cosplay as E-Honda, you're going to look weird.
Yeah, if you're
It's not going to look like
5
E-Honda.
foot, white and skinny, don't try and cosplay Barrett.
Exactly.
It's just not going to look good. There's a certain element of common sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's things like common sense in things like if your character is a nice, cleanly shaven, smart-looking guy, don't turn up with like half a beard. Or conversely, if your character has a beard, if you can grow a beard, good for you. If you can't grow a beard,
Make a fake beard.
you can either make or buy a fake beard that you can just glue to your face.
Gigi might be selling some hair, so you can always use his.
You have to remember that some of these characters from anime are drawn in impossible shapes.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to recreate that.
I was going to say.
It's going to be difficult, so you take your own interpretation on it based on your body shape. Most people have it up to here, and then this bit here where you've got most of your internal organs before your head.
But I mean, certainly if you're trying to portray the character well, do play to your strengths. Know what your body shape is like.
Yeah, I avoid flat-chested schoolgirls.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
I avoid it.
There are flat-chested schoolgirls?
I am mad. To do the female character.
You feel like it.
And I also, when I did it originally for the competition, I actually had padding as well. So I actually had artificial hips. So it made me look slightly bigger on my hips as a woman would.
Yeah.
You've got
Like
very
I
narrow
said,
hips
there-
as well.
And
There
then
are
I
ways
also
to work
brought
around
in
these things.
my waist, because a woman will have naturally a slimmer waist than a man. It's also positioned higher than a man. So I had to artificially create the waist slightly further up to make me look like a woman. You can't just go straight as a girl.
Also, it's how you carry yourself. If you're gonna carry, I mean, Nert's been through this in his photography panels a lot. You know, how to stand like a man and how not to stand.
I mean, me, Tab and Keith have done a panel at Expo quite a few times now about presenting yourself on stage, where basically, I mean, just little things like, you know, if you're cosplaying Cloud and you're carrying around essentially a actually physically impossibly large piece of metal, nobody could carry that around, let alone go whee with it. Yeah, you may have made out of paper foam, whatever.
Simulate the weight.
Simulate the weight. Don't walk around going whee.
Especially if the hilt isn't actually attached to the blade.
I had a bird's eye view of that happening.
Yeah, we were up on the top.
I had.
It is one of my most watched videos on YouTube.
It's bless it. There was this lovely guy. Yes. We'll pop that thing in now. Always make sure your props, costume, and everything are safe. You don't want to be sued for damaging somebody's beautiful face, body, legs, arms, hands, fingers. Yeah.
Sue yourself.
There was another one.
You can see the event.
There was a couple of things that happened at the Euro Cosplay final. Fortunately, most of them were behind the scenes. There was one girl who was on very high rises.
With massive
she was on
14
block
foot
still.
high.
Yeah. There were about
14 foot. That would have been cool.
she had ridiculous, huge, big stilts, but they weren't very well secured to her feet. So when she walked up the ramp, which took you onto the stage, she took a couple of steps up the ramp and she went.
Yeah, she could walk.
Got pulled back up again, went up a bit more and went. Got pulled back up again, staggered out onto the stage, came back again and went. Came back down the stairs again and went. And it's like, she's lucky to be alive. She's lucky to not be. And also things like building your props and your stage props. Always make sure that your stage props aren't made out of sharp, pointy metal, because your family member will be going to hospital. And again, that is something that did happen. So cosplay safe. Always cosplay safe.
Actually,
if you're putting anyone at risk, only yourself.
Right.
Even then, you know,
here's one.
You're putting the onus onto the event to sort you out if you even hurt yourself.
And I do not want to have to sort anything like
Here's
that out
one.
ever again.
If you're building something big, before the event, know what the smallest thing that you have to go through or under is.
Somebody from last year's Euro Cosplay, in their qualifier, they cosplayed as Safer Sephiroth, and they had the big mandala behind them, the huge big hoops.
Fell apart.
And what he didn't appreciate is he had to get through doors.
I mean, it's possible to take big costumes through doors. That door has had Optimus Prime come through it. But that's because James bends.
No, you couldn't get through. You had to build it.
If it's something that actually has to go through the door in pieces, make sure you can get back into it quickly enough that everyone hasn't stopped clapping by that point.
If you're going to be wearing something with very limited movement, find out if there's going to be steps going up to the stage and if there's a ramp available.
Yeah.
If you're wearing a full head mask,
if you're making something to limit your arms and you're wearing a skirt down to your feet, just make sure that there's somebody there to catch you just in case, because again, in my Skexel I nearly did faceplant as I was getting up the steps because I had a floor length sort of skirty thing around me. It was very, very baggy and very sort of like flowy, but I did step on it like literally on every step, and each time you step on something as you go up a step,
it gets worse.
It gets worse because it's not carrying on with you. So
this
is very much a do as I say, not as I do. But try your hardest to finish your costume in time to have it all worn at least once before the event.
I'm so bad at this.
Bad at this. It is a thing we should all do.
Skexel was really quite far in advance the second time.
The second time he was.
It's when you find out what things have gone wrong, what things aren't fitting properly, and very important things like how you move.
Well, sometimes you know these things and still decide not to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, I aim for a month to 2 months before the event that I'm taking it to.
God, you're so well organised.
Every single one except Skexel. Every single one except Skexel 2 months before, without fail. I'd wear it 2 or 3 times. And so I'd think, I'd wear it and I'd go, yeah, it feels fine. And I'd go away and I'd think, right, what do I want to do? Okay, I'll wear it again, see if it works. Yeah, that works, I can do that. Again, there's nothing worse than going onto stage in your costume that you've not worn. You've got this brilliant skit in mind. You're going to do all these fantastic things. And you walk on stage and go, can't see, can't move, can't do anything.
Light levels, different lights, you can see it's the
You're going to be
thing.
wearing
You try
funny
something
shoes,
on.
get some time practicing
Yeah.
wearing before it.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, Luke did a medicine seller from Mononoke, who was ghetto, which has long teeth on them, and we bought some because there's no way I'm making it ghetto. But I was just like, Luke, for God's sake, practice walking in these fucking things for a couple of weeks before the con, which he did, fortunately.
I mean, when I went to the cosplay ball, I was on 18-inch heels. I think twice. That was fun.
Always practicing.
And
your
anything
shoes.
that you think is going to be difficult to wear, give it a good practice.
I'd say anything you're going to wear. I mean, anything that you've made, make sure it works. You know, it's not like it's not
Obviously, if
like
it's jeans
shop
and a
floor
t-shirt,
stuff.
you can just fling it on for 5 minutes. It's fine. But
Yeah. Do you not expect all your costumes to be
And rollerblades as
comfortable?
Practice everything. I made a mask out of solid plaster. I thought it was perfectly fine. I tried it on a few times, it was fine. Go into the masquerade, walked, twitched a bit, plastered it in the eye. I was going for the masquerade, and I was just carrying on, carrying on. Now if someone stopped me for a photo and they grabbed me, I'm in a photo going, I have no idea who you are. Still don't know to this day.
Probably also work if they offer you a watcher on stage, if you're in a big fursuit or a quad suit, accept the offer.
Yeah.
I have a fleeting memory of wearing into at Iacon was got down the ramp, I got to the sort of T-shaped area, go towards it, and just hearing this poor guy just yell, "Stop!" No, I can see the edge of the stage. However, when watching the video, I was maybe a bit closer than I actually was. I was fine.
There's other things like you can be fine walking around it during the day. You get onto stage, stage lights.
These lights are nothing like outdoor lights. Test it on test it outdoor light. Fine. Got into masquerade. I cannot see a thing. We have the steps. Oh look, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's why everyone is supposed to go to masquerade rehearsals.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, rehearse at least once.
Yeah. I mean, on the topic of stage managers as well, and
In the masquerade
I know already. You don't need to mention
I didn't
it.
hear what you said.
If again you're in a big complicated costume and you've got a friend who's willing to be your stage helper, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from going, right, okay, I mean, let's pluck one out the air. Haku from Spirited Away. Get somebody to just dress as the girl that I can't remember the name of, or some of the other. Yeah, I thought it was Chihiro. Yeah, so a counterpart character that will help you along because it will reduce the level of disbelief on stage. Because let's say you're dressed as something and you're going on and you've got like random Joe Blogs and a t-shirt and jeans. It kind of like damages the suspension of disbelief on stage.
Or just get them to dress all in black. If they don't have a costume.
Yeah,
I mean, for
at the very
sorry.
least, yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Simon was it black?
Or, I mean, if,
Kashana said that.
This person doesn't have to be judged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I helped